Something strange is building in Mason, Ohio, and no tournament press release can fully explain it. Staff at one of the biggest events on the entire tennis calendar are bracing for a wave of noise they didn't create and can't quite control. Why does a 21-year-old with no Grand Slam title to her name carry this kind of gravity before she's even stepped on court? Why did the tournament itself go out of its way, in an official announcement, to call out her name specifically? And what happens when the loudest crowd in the building runs headfirst into the most stacked draw of the season? Stay with this one. Because the answer is bigger than a single player. This is shaping up to be one of the defining stories of the entire hardcourt season. They just call her Alex. No surname needed. That's how an entire nation says it now, like she belongs to them personally. In a matter of days, she walks into the Cincinnati Open, a tournament that already has more legends than it knows what to do with: Aryna Sabalenka, Mira Andreeva, Amanda Anisimova, Naomi Osaka, Elena Rybakina, defending champion Iga Swiatek. This isn't a stage where a hot streak gets to hide. It's a stage that exposes everything. And yet, out of that entire field of icons, the tournament's own player announcement paused to single out Alex, alongside Brazilian phenom João Fonseca, for having, in their words, some of the most passionate and vocal fans in the sport. Sit with that for a second. Out of a draw full of champions, the institution itself is bracing specifically for her supporters. That's not some fan account exaggerating. That's the organization admitting they've noticed something they can't fully manage. And the scale of what she's stepping into is almost hard to picture. In 2025, this tournament drew a record 285,571 fans from every state in the country and 65 nations around the world. For 2026, organizers are preparing for nearly 300,000 people across a completely rebuilt 40-acre site, the product of a reported $260 million renovation. New courts, new fan zones, a tournament that now feels less like a tennis event and more like a sporting festival. Qualifying starts August 11th. The singles final lands August 23rd. And somewhere inside that massive new ecosystem walks a Filipina carrying the hope of a country that's waited generations for a moment like this. But here's where the tension actually lives. None of this guarantees anything. Flags don't return serves. Chants don't save match points. If Alex loses in the first round, all of this noise disappears overnight. Just another promising story that stalled right when it mattered, so why does anyone believe it'll go differently? Because weeks earlier in Washington, this exact question already got tested, and the answer came back almost violently clear. Before that tournament even started, the chairman revealed that nearly 80% of ticket inquiries that month weren't about the event at all. They were one specific question: when is Alex playing? That's not the attention a rising player gets. That's the attention reserved for someone who has already become an event in her own right. And then she nearly blew it. In her opening match against former world number 4 and Olympic gold medalist Jung Chin-won, she dropped the first set and fell behind in the second. For a moment, it looked like everyone's quiet fear coming true, the hype outrunning the results. Then, almost invisibly, something shifted. She clawed her way back, forced a third set, and ran away with it 6-1. Not a scare. A statement. The crowd got louder after that win, not before it, and that order matters more than almost anything else in this story, because belief that's earned survives losses. Belief that's only borrowed from hype doesn't. She kept earning hers, match after match, all the way to a final that had no business feeling inevitable, against Jessica Pegula, a former world number 3 and Grand Slam finalist who'd spent years in rooms Alex was only just being let into. Alex dropped the first set. Then the skies opened and rain delayed the match. If you know tennis, you know exactly how cruel a rain delay can be. It doesn't just pause a match, it pauses a mind mid-fight and leaves it alone with every doubt it was trying to outrun. Players have lost matches during rain delays without hitting another shot, simply because their nerves came undone in the silence. So what did Alex do when the covers came off? She didn't blink. She took the second set, then closed out the third 6-0, not scraped through, closed it, against a former top 3 player in a final, after a rain delay. And when the last ball landed, something happened that had never happened before in the sport's history. She became the first Filipina to ever win a WTA Tour-level singles title. An entire country's tennis history, rewritten in one final set. But greatness doesn't reward you with rest. It rewards you with higher stakes, because now every tournament stops being a chance to surprise people and becomes a chance to disappoint them. Before a title, a deep run feels like magic. After a title, anything less can feel like failure. That's the exact trap waiting for her in Cincinnati, on a stage far bigger than Washington ever was. Because this story didn't start there either. Rewind to Wimbledon, on grass, where the Real Foundation was built. Alex became the first player from the Philippines to ever reach the second week of a Grand Slam singles draw in the Open era, not just to win a round, but the first ever to last long enough to see week 2. Then came the moment that turned a good tournament into a legend in the making. On center court, facing defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek, she won 7-6 in a first-set tiebreak that stretched to 9 points, then 6-2 to close it out. Not a near upset. A win on center court over a defending champion. She later said that looking into the stands that fortnight, she saw what felt like a full house of Filipinos, despite Wimbledon tickets being some of the hardest to get anywhere in the world. Think about what's hidden in that sentence. People organizing, flying across the planet, finding their way into one of the most exclusive venues alive just to be near her when it counted. That's not casual fandom. That's identity. And identity-based support behaves nothing like results-based support. Results-based fans vanish the moment you lose. Identity-based fans stay, because they were never only cheering a scoreline, they were cheering what she represents. A country with legendary boxers and basketball stars, but rarely a tennis player standing shoulder to shoulder with the best in the world. A 5-week run on grass, a WTA 125 title in Birmingham, a semi-final in Berlin, then the Wimbledon breakthrough, pushed her to a career-high ranking of world number 28. A year earlier, people were quietly asking if she could crack the top 100. Now the question isn't whether she belongs in the top 30. It's how much higher she can climb. When the WTA opened fan voting for its mid-season Star of the Swing award, it wasn't close. She won with nearly 90% of the vote. 90% doesn't happen from casual interest. That happens when an entire fanbase mobilizes like something much bigger than a poll is on the line. So here comes Cincinnati, arriving at the exact moment this story can't afford to slow down. A record-breaking crowd. A brand new venue. A draw stacked with legends who've already dismantled bigger names than hers. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you if you're paying attention. Every one of her biggest wins so far has raised the ceiling of what people expect from the next one. And raised expectations are their own opponent, one that doesn't live across the net, but entirely inside her own head. Can she carry an entire country's hope into a draw full of Grand Slam champions? Can she handle the shift from hunter to hunted, the player everyone studies now instead of overlooking? Can she walk out in front of nearly 300,000 fans, many of them there specifically for her, and still play like nobody's watching? Nobody knows. That's not a dodge, that's the truth, and it's exactly why this is worth watching instead of assuming the ending. Elite sport doesn't grip you through guaranteed victory. It grips you through uncertainty wrapped around someone who's already proven she's capable of something extraordinary. If she were ranked 200 and unknown, a first-round loss would mean nothing. But she's not unknown anymore. She's a champion. A Grand Slam second-week competitor. A player who beat a defending Wimbledon champion on the most famous court in the sport. Which means every match from here carries weight it didn't carry a year ago, weight that will either forge her into something her country has never produced, or become the exact pressure that stalls everything she's built. Nobody gets to skip ahead and find out early. You sit with it, point by point, the same way she does. And maybe that's the real reason the flags keep multiplying wherever she goes. Not because anyone expects a guaranteed outcome, but because they've watched it happen again and again. Down a set, down a break, sitting through a rain delay with the match slipping away, she finds something extra exactly when it matters most. That's not a guarantee. It's a pattern. And patterns like that are what turn a talented athlete into a phenomenon people build their vacations around. So when the lights come up in Cincinnati, when her name is finally called and the first Philippine flag rises somewhere in that crowd of hundreds of thousands, followed by another, and another, until the chants roll through the stands like something rehearsed, even though nobody planned a second of it. Remember how this actually started. Remember Washington, where 80% of the questions were about one player before she'd even played a match. Remember the third set against Jung, when a struggling comeback turned into a statement. Remember the rain delay against Pagula and the 6-0 set that followed it. Remember center court, and a defending champion who never saw it coming. None of that happened because a crowd willed it into existence. It happened because point after point, match after match, she kept finding a way to be worth flying across the world to watch. Cincinnati doesn't need her to already believe that. Cincinnati is simply the next place she has to prove it all over again, against players who've already beaten legends themselves, on a stage that has already broken bigger names than hers. Whether she wins the whole tournament or loses in the very first round honestly isn't even the most interesting question anymore. The most interesting question is what she does in the moment right before the pressure becomes unbearable. That split second between the crowd going silent and the ball leaving her racket. That's where every one of her biggest wins has actually happened. Not in the celebration after. In that split second before. And in a few days, under the lights, in front of the loudest, largest crowd this tournament has ever assembled, we finally get to watch her walk back into that exact split second one more time. Nobody, Not the analysts, not the bookmakers, not even her own team, can tell you what happens next. Which is exactly why an entire tennis world, and an entire nation standing behind her, simply cannot look away.